When legendary basketball player Michael Jordan walked into a quiet Chicago cafe seeking a moment of peace after a charity event, he never expected to come face to face with his past. There, wiping tables with arthritic hands, was Amelia, 86 years old, the woman who once bandaged his scraped knees, read him bedtime stories, and nurtured his earliest dreams of becoming an elite athlete. Shocked to find his beloved childhood nanny still working two physically demanding jobs just to survive, Michael was confronted with a harsh reality. While he had become one of the most successful men in the world, the woman who helped shape his discipline and determination had been struggling in obscurity for decades. What began as a casual reunion quickly turned into an extraordinary journey of redemption, revelation, and an ambitious plan that would change both of their lives forever. What Michael had yet to realize was that beneath this seemingly simple story of reconnection, there was a long-buried family secret, one that would force him to question everything he thought he knew about his past and the very foundation of his success. Michael Jordan rubbed his tired eyes as he stepped out the back door of the event. The ceremony had been a blur of handshakes, cameras, and motivational speeches. Now all he wanted was a moment of silence before his driver arrived. "Just 15 minutes, he murmured to his security team. "I need a coffee." His bodyguard scanned the street before pointing to a small cafe across the road. "That place looks empty enough, sir." The cafe was indeed quiet, exactly what Michael needed. The scent of fresh coffee and pastries filled the air as he stepped inside. He ordered a black coffee and found a table in a corner, away from the windows. From there, he could see the entire cafe. That's when he noticed her, an elderly woman in a blue and white uniform, slowly wiping down tables. Something about the careful way she moved caught his attention. Her silver hair was pinned in a neat bun, and despite her hunched shoulders, she worked with purpose. Michael took a sip of his coffee, unable to look away. There was something familiar about her hands, the way her right wrist twisted slightly as she scrubbed a stubborn spot. "It can't be," he whispered to himself. The woman turned slightly and Michael caught a glimpse of her profile. His cup froze halfway to his lips. Those high cheekbones, the soft curve of her nose, memories came rushing back like a flood. Bedtime stories in two languages, bandaged knees, and someone who truly listened when no one else did. "Amelia!" The name escaped his lips before he could stop it. The old woman didn't hear him. She kept working, moving slowly to the next table. Michael stood up, his heart pounding. His security guard raised an eyebrow, but Michael waved him off. "Amelia Vega?" he asked louder this time. The woman turned, confusion crossing her aged face. "Yes. Do I know you, sir?" Michael stepped closer. Now he could see the deep lines around her eyes and mouth. Her hands were weathered with age, rough from years of work, but those warm brown eyes were exactly the same. "It's me," he said softly. "Michael. Michael Jordan. From Wilmington." Amelia's eyes widened. The cleaning cloth slipped from her hand. "Mikey?" she whispered, using the nickname only she had ever given him. Her trembling hand reached out, stopping just before touching his face. "My little Mikey, is it really you?" Michael nodded, suddenly finding it hard to speak. This woman had wiped his tears, prepared his meals, and taught him that talent was nothing without hard work. "You've grown so much," she said, her accent still strong. "I see you on TV sometimes. Commercials, basketball, that team you bought. You were always determined, weren't you?" "What are you doing here, Amelia?" Michael asked, glancing around the nearly empty cafe. "You're 86 years old." "Last month," she confirmed, slowly bending down to pick up her cloth. Michael quickly crouched to help her. "But why are you working in a cafe?" The question came out more bluntly than he intended. Amelia straightened her uniform, her pride evident in the way she lifted her chin. "Life happens, boy. I work because I have to. Bills don't pay themselves." "Amelia, tables 4 and 6 need cleaning," the manager's voice called from behind the counter. "Coming, Mr. Davis," she answered, suddenly looking tired. "You should sit down," Michael said, noticing how she leaned slightly against the table for support. She shook her head. "No time to sit, Mikey. These old bones need to keep moving, or they'll stop for good." She smiled, but Michael saw the exhaustion in her eyes. "Can we talk after your shift, maybe?" he asked. She checked the large clock on the wall. I get off at 8, then I catch the bus to my night job. Night job? Michael couldn't hide his shock. You work 2 jobs? Amelia nodded. I clean office buildings on Market Street. Pays better than the day job. Michael ran a hand through his hair, struggling to process it. The woman who had once cared for him now spent her night scrubbing floors. Amelia, Amelia, the tables. The manager's voice cut through their conversation again. I have to go, she said, giving Michael's arm a quick squeeze. You turned out well, boy. Your mother would be proud. Before Michael could say anything else, she walked away, collecting dirty dishes as she went. He watched her work, noticing how she winced while lifting a heavy tray. His security guard approached. Sir, your car is waiting. Michael nodded but couldn't take his eyes off Amelia. She was already busy at another table, her back turned to him now. He pulled out his wallet and placed a $100 bill under his coffee cup. It felt pathetically inadequate. We need to change plans, he told his guard. I want to know everything about this cafe. Who owns it? I want to change everything. And I need to know where she lives. The guard nodded, already taking notes on his phone. Michael took one last look at Amelia, the woman who had once been the center of his childhood world, now invisible to everyone except his hands that wiped their tables. As he stepped onto the bustling Chicago street, the contrast struck him, his sleek, expensive car, his phone buzzing with messages from people who wanted his time, his money, his ideas. And behind him, Amelia was still working at 86 years old, her hands submerged in hot water and cleaning chemicals. This isn't right, he whispered, sliding into the back seat of his car. As his driver pulled away from the curb, Michael made a decision. The woman who had once cared for him would never have to clean another table or worry about bus schedules again. He just didn't know exactly how he would do it yet, but he would make sure of it. What he hadn't realized was that helping Amelia would lead him to uncover a long-buried secret, something that would change everything. He thought he knew his past, but this would force him to question the very foundation of his success. Back in his hotel suite, Michael Jordan paced back and forth. The windows stretched from floor to ceiling, and the lights of Chicago shimmered below, but he barely noticed. His mind was elsewhere, in another time. Amelia, he whispered, and the name unlocked a flood of memories he hadn't visited in decades. He sank onto the edge of the king-size bed and closed his eyes. Suddenly, he was 4 years old again, standing in the doorway of his childhood home in New York, watching a younger Amelia arrive with a small suitcase and a warm smile. This is Miss Amelia, his mother said. She's going to help take care of you and your siblings. Young Michael studied her curiously. She wasn't like the other nannies. She didn't smell of strong perfume or talk to him as if he were a baby. Instead, she knelt to his level and asked, "Do you like stories, kid?" When he nodded, she smiled. Well, I know a lot of stories, some in English, some in Spanish. Maybe we can learn together. Yes. Michael opened his eyes and grabbed his phone. Scrolling through his contacts, he found his private investigator's number. I need information on someone, he said when the man answered. Who? I'll send you the details tonight. After the call, Michael walked to the minibar but didn't open it. Instead, he stood still, recalling the chaos of his parents' divorce. He was 8 years old when the fights got worse. His father's voice was always too loud, his mother's tears hidden behind closed doors. Through it all, Amelia had been steady. When he hid in his room with his books and drawings, she would bring him snacks without forcing him to talk. When he couldn't sleep because of the shouting, she taught him to count stars through the window. Find the North Star, she would say. When you feel lost, it will help you find your way. Michael walked to the bathroom and splashed cold water on his face. Looking at his reflection, he could almost see the skinny boy he once was, the boy who was bullied at school for being different, for thinking too much about the future instead of just caring about basketball and video games. You have a special mind, Amelia once told him after he came home with a bloody nose. They hit you because they don't understand you. One day they'll wish they had been kinder. She taught him more than any teacher, not just how to read and do math, but how to think about problems differently. When his projects failed, she never said he was wrong. Instead, she asked, "What can we learn from this mistake?" Michael's phone buzzed with a message from his assistant. I found a dress for Miss Amelia. Also, your meeting with the investors has been rescheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. He replied with a quick thank you and turned back to the window. Below, the city was alive. People heading home or going out for the night. Was Amelia on a bus somewhere in that sea of lights, heading to clean offices while everyone else slept? The next memory was painful. He was 10 years old when he came home from school, excited to tell Amelia about his science fair victory. But when he stepped through the front door, she wasn't there to greet him. "Where's Amelia?" he asked his mother. "She had to leave, sweetheart." His mother's voice sounded strange, tight. "When is she coming back?" "She's not coming back. No explanation. Just gone." For weeks he waited by the window, certain she would return, until his mother told him to stop. "It's an adult thing, Michael. Complicated." He never understood what that meant. As a teenager, he sometimes thought he saw her on the street or in a store, but eventually, like all childhood things, Amelia faded into the background of his memory, until today. His laptop chimed with a new email. Preliminary information on Amelia. Michael clicked to open it. There wasn't much yet, just basic details. Amelia, 86 years old. Immigrated to the United States 30 years ago. Current address, an apartment in a rundown area of Chicago. 2 jobs, waitress by day, office cleaner by night. No criminal record. Small bank account. No retirement savings. "How is this possible?" Michael murmured. Another memory surfaced. Amelia teaching him how to make paper airplanes. Not the simple ones, but complex designs that soared across the yard. "Always think about the air, kid," she explained. "Air is invisible, but it's real. The things we can't see can be the most powerful." Later, when he started his basketball career, he realized he still used that logic. His phone rang. It was his private investigator. "Mr. Jordan, I found something interesting. Amelia worked for several wealthy families over the years. Before coming to the U.S., she was employed by your family from 1979 to 1985. "Yes, I know that part," Michael said impatiently. "What's unusual is how her employment ended. There's no record of her resigning or being formally dismissed. She simply disappears from your family's records. 3 weeks later, she shows up at the U.S. Embassy requesting an emergency visa." Michael frowned. "What kind of emergency?" "That's where it gets strange. The paperwork only says family emergency, but there's no record of any crisis. Your sister was already living in the U.S. at the time, healthy, no deaths in the family, no accidents. So she lied to get the visa? Or someone helped her get it?" Quickly and quietly. "Keep investigating." After hanging up, Michael lay down on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Why would Amelia need an emergency visa? Why leave so suddenly without even saying goodbye? His mother had never given him a direct answer about Amelia's departure. Now he wondered if there was more to this story than just complicated adult stuff. He closed his eyes again, and this time, he remembered something else. The last time he saw Amelia. The night before she disappeared. He had been in bed, almost asleep, when he heard Ray's voices downstairs. His father was angry, as always, but the other voice wasn't Amelia's. It wasn't soft and gentle like usual. It was fierce and protective. "You can't talk to him like that," she said. "He's just a boy." His father responded with something Michael couldn't make out. And then Amelia shot back, "Maybe you should be the one leaving early tomorrow." After that, she was gone. Michael sat up, the memory now vivid and clear. What if Amelia had been kicked out for standing up to his father? For defending him? If that was true, what else from his childhood had he misunderstood? He grabbed his phone again, this time calling his mother in Canada. "Mom," he said as soon as she answered, "I need to ask you about Amelia." The long silence that followed confirmed that there was indeed a story there, something he was only beginning to uncover. "Mom?" Michael repeated. "Are you still there?" "I'm here," his mother finally replied, her voice unusually cautious. "Why are you asking about Amelia after all these years?" "Because I just saw her today in San Francisco." On the other end of the line, he heard a sharp intake of breath. "How is that possible? She's working in a café at 86 years old, cleaning tables and scrubbing floors." Silence returned, heavier this time. Mom, what happened back then? Why did she really leave? It's very late here. Can we talk about this another time? No, Michael said firmly. I need to know now, his mother sighed. Some things are better left in the past. Not this, Michael insisted. Not Amelia. I'll call you tomorrow, his mother said, and the line went dead. Michael stared at the phone, frustrated. Even after all these years, his mother was still keeping secrets. But who was she protecting, and why? While Michael was building his basketball career in 1984, Amelia was working as a live-in caregiver for an elderly woman in Sacramento. Her days started at 5 in the morning and often didn't end until midnight. She slept on a fold-out couch in the living room and had Sundays off, if the woman's daughter could visit. The year Michael won his first NBA championship, Amelia found out that her sister Teresa had cancer. She moved to Oakland to care for her, working night shifts as a cleaner so she could take her to treatments during the day. When Michael led the Bulls to their first three-peat, Amelia was burying her sister and facing eviction from the tiny apartment they had shared. The rent had gone up, and she could no longer afford it on her own. The year Michael retired for the second time and had his jersey retired by the Bulls, Amelia was standing in line at a free clinic, hoping the pain in her hands was just arthritis and nothing worse. The doctor recommended she find a less physically demanding job. She simply smiled politely and went straight to her cleaning shift. Two paths that had once crossed now ran parallel, never touching again, separated by vast chasms of circumstance. The next morning, Michael canceled his meeting with investors. But sir, these people came all the way from Japan just to see you, his assistant protested. Reschedule. Tell them a family emergency came up. It wasn't entirely a lie. Amelia had been more family to him than many of his blood relatives. His driver took him to the Oakland address his private investigator had found. The building was a worn-down gray apartment complex with bars on the windows and peeling paint. A group of teenagers lingered near the entrance, eyeing his car suspiciously. Michael checked the time. 10:30 a.m. According to the investigator's report, Amelia should be home between her night shift and her afternoon job at the café. He rang the buzzer for apartment 3B. No answer. He tried again, pressing longer this time. Finally, a hoarse voice came through the intercom. Who is it? It's Michael. Michael Jordan. Another pause. Then the door buzzed open. The hallway smelled of old food and other things Michael preferred not to identify. The door to 3B had 3 locks. When it finally opened, Amelia stood there, wearing a faded robe, her silver hair loose over her shoulders. Michael, what are you doing here? She glanced nervously down the hall. Is something wrong? Can I come in? He asked. She hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside, opening the door wider. It's not much, she said apologetically. The apartment was tiny but impeccably clean. There was a bed, a small table with 2 chairs, a simple kitchen, and a TV that looked like it had been new when Reagan was president. Please sit down, she said, motioning to one of the chairs. I can make some tea. Don't worry about it. She sat in front of him, hands clasped in her lap. How did you find me? That doesn't matter, Michael said gently. What matters is why you're here, working 2 jobs at your age. Amelia straightened her shoulders. I take care of myself. I always have. But why did you leave Chicago so suddenly? Why didn't you say goodbye? Her eyes darkened. Some goodbyes are too hard to say. My mother won't tell me what happened. Maybe you should respect that. Amelia stood up slowly, wincing as she leaned on her left knee. Would you like some tea now? Michael realized he wouldn't get any answers if he pushed too hard. Tea would be nice. As she filled the kettle, he noticed a small shelf near the bed. On it, a few photographs and a stack of newspapers. He casually walked over. The photos showed a younger Amelia with another woman, probably her sister, and a girl who must have been her niece. But what caught his attention were the newspapers, old clippings, carefully preserved in plastic. He picked one up. Michael Jordan leads the Bulls to NBA title. Another, Jordan retires for the 2nd time, the end of an era. And another, Michael Jordan's legacy in basketball and business. Amelia had been following his career all these years, keeping every piece of news about him. You always knew what I was doing, he said softly. She placed the teacups down with trembling hands. I always knew you would do great things. Why didn't you ever reach out to me? She looked away. It was better this way. Better for whom? Before she could answer, a coughing fit overtook her. It was deep and dry, the kind that comes from years of hard work and little access to health care. You're sick, Michael said, concerned. Just getting old, she replied when she finally caught her breath. The doctors want me to take medicine for my lungs and heart, but, she shrugged. But it's too expensive, he finished for her. She didn't deny it. Michael felt a wave of anger, not at Amelia, but at the cruel twists of fate that had led them here. I want to help you, he said firmly. Amelia shook her head. I didn't keep those newspapers to ask for charity, Michael. I kept them because I'm proud of you. This isn't charity, it's what you deserve, she gave a sad smile. Life rarely gives us what we deserve. It gives us what we fight for. Michael knew then that this proud woman wouldn't accept help easily, but as he drank his tea, she had made something clear. Black tea, no sugar, because sugar was a luxury. He silently swore to find a way. What he still didn't understand was why their paths had diverged so drastically all those years ago, and why his mother was so reluctant to talk about it. The answer, he suspected, lay somewhere in that complicated business of adulthood that he had been too young to grasp back then. But he was no longer a child, and now he had resources that even his father couldn't have imagined. Back in his hotel suite, Michael Jordan looked at his phone. His mother had finally sent a message saying that some things were best discussed in person. I'll fly out tomorrow. For too long, he had waited for answers. Now he needed them. His private investigator had sent a more detailed report, and Michael opened the file on his laptop, beginning to read. Most of the content was information he already knew. Amelia's immigration records, her work history, her current situation. But midway through, something caught his attention. Financial records showed regular payments from a South African bank account to Amelia's account between 1985 and 1995. The account holder was May Jordan, his mother, who had been sending Amelia money for 10 years after she left. Why? Michael scrolled further. The payments stopped in 1995, the same time he started his first business with his brother and made his first significant money. Did my mother run out of funds to help her? He wondered aloud. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. His assistant entered with a folder. Sir, I have the information you requested on Amelia's employment history. Michael took the folder eagerly. What did you find? She worked for 3 families after arriving in the U.S., all wealthy, all with young children. The assistant hesitated, and all 3 families terminated her employment within 2 years, with no official reason. That's unusual for someone who worked for my family for 6 years, Michael said, frowning. Is there more? The assistant continued. After the 3rd family, she switched to elderly care and lower-wage cleaning jobs, but she stayed in those positions much longer. Michael flipped through the documents, trying to identify a pattern. Why would an experienced, dedicated nanny suddenly start getting fired? And why switch to less desirable jobs? His phone rang. The caller ID showed the investigator's number. Mr. Jordan, I found something you need to see immediately. I'm sending it now. Seconds later, Michael's email pinged with a new message. He opened the attachment, a scanned document from 1985, a letter. As he read, his hands started to tremble. The letter was addressed to the U.S. Embassy in South Africa, supporting the urgency of Amelia's visa application. It stated that her services were no longer required by the Jordan family and that there would be negative consequences if she remained in South Africa. It was essentially a threat, wrapped in professional language. What the hell? Michael whispered. The investigator's voice came through the phone. There's more. I tracked down the daughter of the family Amelia worked for in Sacramento. She remembers Amelia well and says her mother specifically hired her because she came highly recommended. By my mother? Michael asked, confused. Yes, apparently your mother helped several families hire Amelia over the years, always with the same warning. that Amelia might have to leave suddenly if your father found out where she was working. Michael felt as if the ground beneath him was tilting. None of this made sense. "Keep digging," he told the investigator. "I need to know everything." After hanging up, Michael paced the room, trying to piece together this puzzle. His father had forced Amelia to leave South Africa. His mother had secretly helped her for years, and everyone had kept it from him. But why? An hour later, his phone rang again. This time, it was a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Jordan, this is Gerald Winters. I was your father's attorney in Pretoria from 1980 to 1989. Michael sat down slowly. "How did you get this number?" "Your investigator contacted me. He said you were looking into Amelia's departure. I've been retired for years, but I thought I should speak to you directly." "I'm listening," Michael said, his voice tight. "You need to understand the context," Winters began. "Your father was an important man in Pretoria, with a reputation for protecting his connections and keeping affairs quiet." "Get to the point," Michael cut in. "From a legal standpoint, your nanny, Miss Amelia, became a problem. She interfered with how your father wanted to raise you. She encouraged interests he didn't approve of, contradicted his instructions." "She cared about me," Michael said firmly. "Perhaps, but the breaking point came when she witnessed an incident between you and your father, a disciplinary matter." Michael recalled his father's angry voice, a sharp pain hidden away in his room. "She threatened to report him for child abuse," Winters continued. "At the time, with your father's connections, the report probably wouldn't have gone anywhere, but she was making a scene, refusing to back down." Michael closed his eyes, the pieces finally falling into place. "So she wasn't deported?" "Not exactly. The agreement was that she would leave the country voluntarily with a recommendation letter for future employment, and your father wouldn't press charges against her for alleged theft." "Theft?" Michael asked, incredulous. "Yes, ridiculous, I know. Amelia never stole anything," Michael said. Winters agreed. "But it was a convenient accusation that would have made it impossible for her to find work in South Africa again. Your father could be persuasive when he wanted to be," Winters concluded. "And my mother? Where was she in all of this?" There was a pause on the line. "Your mother negotiated the deal that allowed Miss Amelia to leave safely. She insisted on handling the recommendation letters herself and helped her secure a visa. Why did no one ever tell me this? You were a child, Mr. Jordan, and later, well, some secrets take on a life of their own. The longer they're kept, the harder they are to reveal." After ending the call, Michael sat in silence, stunned. All these years, he had thought Amelia had simply left. In reality, she had been forced out while trying to protect him. His assistant knocked and entered with another folder. "Sir, I have Amelia's current medical records." Michael took the folder. "Number." "How did you get this?" "You don't want to know, sir," the assistant replied. Michael opened the folder and began reading. His stomach turned. Untreated hypertension, early-stage COPD, years of exposure to cleaning chemicals, severe arthritis in her hands and knees, cataracts forming in her right eye, treatable conditions if she could afford care. He closed the folder. "Book me on the next flight to New York and get a hotel room for my mother when she arrives tomorrow. Not here, somewhere else." "Yes, sir. May I ask why New York?" "I need to speak with my brother in person." As his assistant made the arrangements, Michael looked out at the San Francisco skyline, where the pieces were finally coming together. But the picture they formed was ugly, shaped by his father's actions. The only person who had truly protected him as a child was his mother, who had helped Amelia escape but kept the truth hidden. Amelia had suffered in silence for decades, too proud to reach out, perhaps too afraid to stir the past. Meanwhile, he had become one of the richest men in the world. The irony was bitter. Some of his most fundamental principles, his drive to solve problems, his determination to stand against conventional thinking, had been nurtured by Amelia. Her influence had helped shape him into the innovator he had become. And all this time, she had been struggling to survive, watching his success from a distance on her phone. A text notification buzzed. His investigator had found something else. Amelia has a great niece named Lua, college-aged. The young woman, apparently brilliant, had been accepted into MIT's engineering program but couldn't afford to attend. Michael Jordan felt a wave of determination. He couldn't change the past, but he could certainly change Amelia's future and her family's. But first, he needed the whole truth. For that, he had to confront his mother. When his assistant returned to confirm his travel plans, Michael made another decision. I want to buy that cafe where Amelia works and the cleaning company as well. His assistant blinked, surprised, but quickly recovered. Right away, sir. Any particular reason? Michael's expression hardened. Because no one should work until they're 86 out of necessity, especially not someone who helped make me who I am. What Michael still didn't realize was that the truth about Amelia's influence on his life was even deeper than he imagined, and that the real story was only just beginning to unfold. The next morning, Michael woke up to a series of messages from his legal team, both the ongoing acquisitions and the cafe owner eager to sell. The cleaning company was more resistant, but he smiled grimly. Resistance was expected, but everyone had a price. By the end of the day, he would be the owner of the two companies that employed Amelia. But buying her workplaces was just the first step. The real challenge would be helping her in a way she would accept. Michael had spent enough time with Amelia to know that direct charity would offend her pride. That woman had worked her entire life, supporting herself and others out of pure determination. A handout, no matter how well-intentioned, would make her feel rejected. No, he needed a more thoughtful approach. While his mother's flight would land in 3 hours, he wanted to see Amelia again, this time with a clearer understanding of their shared past. He ordered his driver to take him to the cafe. It was mid-morning, and the place was filled with customers typing on laptops and having business meetings. Michael spotted Amelia immediately. She was cleaning a table near the window, her movements careful but efficient. He watched her for a moment. Despite her age and obvious pain, she worked with silent dignity. When a customer accidentally knocked over a coffee cup, she was there instantly, with a cloth and a kind word, making the young man's embarrassed smile turn into relief. Small kindnesses. This was Amelia's way, then and now. When she turned and saw Michael, her eyes widened in surprise. He gestured toward an empty table in the corner, and she nodded, finishing her task before walking toward the line. Is something wrong, Ellie? She asked, concern in her voice. I'd like to pay for lunch for you, Michael said. Is it your break? Amelia glanced at the clock. I have 30 minutes at noon. I'll be back then, she replied. Instead of going back to his hotel, Michael asked the driver to take him to a small diner a few blocks away. Not too fancy, not too cheap, a place where Amelia could feel comfortable. Precisely at noon, he was waiting outside the cafe. Amelia emerged looking tired but composed, wearing a faded blue sweater that replaced her work uniform. You didn't have to do this, she said as they walked to the diner. I wanted to, Michael replied simply. Inside the diner, they settled into a booth. Amelia studied the menu with great attention to the prices, finally selecting a bowl of soup. Is that all you want? Michael asked. It's enough, she said firmly. Michael ordered soup for himself as well, though he wasn't particularly hungry. Tell me about your life, he said once the waitress had gone away. After you left South Africa, Michael asked. Amelia seemed hesitant, then slowly began to speak. She told him about coming to America to care for her sister Teresa, who had multiple sclerosis. In the family she worked for, each job had ended abruptly, though she didn't explain why. So you moved to elder care? Michael asked. Yes, it was simpler, she replied. Her eyes met his briefly, then looked away. No children involved, she said, and Michael understood the unspoken message. No children, no significance, no painful reminders of him, no attachments that could suddenly be cut off. Teresa died 12 years ago, Amelia continued, her voice now somber. Cancer. After that, it was just me. No family of hers. A shadow crossed her face. I never married. My work was my life. The soup arrived steaming. Amelia briefly lowered her head in silent grace before taking a careful spoonful. You mentioned a night job? Michael asked. Office cleaning, she nodded. 5 buildings on Market Street. The pay is better at night. That's an exhausting job, Michael commented. It's a job, she shrugged. I'm lucky I can still work at my age. Michael wanted to discuss that point, but held back. Instead, he asked, Do you have any family now? For the first time, Amelia's expression lit up. My great-niece, Lucia Teresa, she said proudly. She's so smart, Ellie, just like you were. Michael smiled softly. Tell me about her, he said. Amelia's pride was evident as she described Lucia. She's 19 and brilliant with computers and math, the first in our family to finish high school. She was accepted into a great engineering university, Amelia said, her voice now quieter. But we couldn't afford it even with loans, she said. She's at community college now, working part-time at a grocery store. Michael spoke softly. Amelia looked up, startled. How did you know? It was just a guess, he lied gently. You said she's good at math. As Amelia continued talking about Lucia's mind, Michael was running pieces of a plan in his head. The girl's situation seemed like the perfect opening for something that could bypass Amelia's pride. I've been thinking, he said when Amelia paused to catch her breath. I'm working on a new project, something important. Another rocket? She asked, genuinely interested. No, something different, he replied. An educational initiative. This wasn't entirely a lie. Education had always been an interest of Michael's, though the specific project he was about to describe didn't yet exist, at least not until he made a few calls after lunch. I'm creating a program for the children of my employees, he continued. I want to make sure the kids have a quality education, something of real value, not just a babysitting job. Amelia nodded in approval, but still didn't understand what he meant. I'd like you to be my help, as a consultant, Michael said. She froze, the spoon still halfway to her mouth. But I'm not a teacher, she retorted. I don't have any diplomas. You have something far more valuable, real-world wisdom, about how kids think and learn. Michael leaned forward. You helped shape my mind when I was young. I'd like others to benefit from that same wisdom. Amelia sat back, the spoon still in her hand, her expression a mix of surprise and suspicion. What kind of work does that involve? Advising our educational team, sharing your ideas, helping design activities that encourage creativity and problem solving. Michael was improvising, but with every word the idea began to make more sense. It would be part-time, well-paid, and much less physically demanding than what you're doing now. The suspicion in her eyes deepened. Why me, after all these years? Because I never forgot what you taught me, Michael said sincerely. About seeing problems differently, about persistence. Those lessons helped me become successful. For a long moment, Amelia said nothing. Then very quietly she spoke. That sounds like charity. It's not, he insisted. It's business. I need someone with your skills. At my age, experience brings wisdom, and that's what we need. Amelia studied him carefully, pride wrestling with practicality in her expression. I need to think about it, she replied. Of course, Michael said, hiding his disappointment. Take all the time you need. When they finished the soup, they talked about lighter things, childhood memories, stories about Michael's children, Amelia's small pepper garden in her apartment. Very soon her break was ending. I have to go back, she said, slowly standing up from the booth. I'll walk you to the door. Thank you for lunch, Michael, and for the offer. I'll think about it, I promise. He watched her return inside, her shoulders still broad despite the weight of the years. His first attempt had met resistance, as expected, but he had planted a seed. Back in the car, Michael made 3 phone calls. The first to the MIT admissions office, the second to a real estate agent in San Francisco, the third to his chief of staff, outlining a new project, one that would need to be created from scratch in record time. I want a comprehensive proposal on my desk by tomorrow, he instructed. Complete budget, timeline, personnel requirements. And what should we call this new initiative, sir? His chief of staff asked. Michael thought for a moment, remembering how Amelia used to call him Pano when he did something kind. Guardians, he said firmly. Call the project Guardians. When he arrived at the airport to meet his mother's flight, the first phase of his plan was already in motion. Whether Amelia accepted his help directly or not, her life was about to change. What he didn't foresee was how much his own life would change in the process, or the secrets that still needed to be uncovered. Michael's mother was waiting at the terminal, looking elegant but tired. She gave him a brief hug. You look exactly like you did when you were a teenager, she said, determined to get answers. Let's not do this here. Michael replied, guiding her to the car waiting for them. As they moved through the San Francisco traffic, the privacy screen raised between them and the driver. His mother turned to him. I suppose you know everything now. Not everything, Michael said. I know Dad forced Amelia to leave. I know she tried to protect me from him. I know you helped her escape. His mother nodded slowly. What are you planning to do, Michael? She's working 2 jobs at 86 years old, cleaning tables and scrubbing floors while I'm worth billions and you feel responsible, don't you? She looked out the window. I felt responsible for 40 years, she said. Why do you think I sent her money whenever I could? Silence hung between them, heavy with implications. There's something you're still not telling me, Michael said. There are many things I haven't told you, his mother replied softly. Some of them aren't my secrets to share. Michael studied her face. What does that mean? Only you can answer that, she said. I'm trying to help her, but she's too proud to accept what she sees as charity, Michael reflected. His mother smiled faintly. That sounds like Amelia, always stubborn about the wrong things. I created a job for her, Michael said, a consulting position she'll see through. So what do you suggest I do? Michael asked, frustration creeping into his voice. His mother thought for a moment. Ask her for help with something real, something that really matters to you. Amelia can't resist helping others. That's who she is. The car stopped at the hotel where Michael had arranged for his mother to stay. Before getting out, she touched his arm. Be kind to her, Michael, and to yourself. The past is painful for everyone involved. After dropping off his mother, Michael returned to his own hotel. His team leader had already sent a preliminary proposal for the Guardians project. It was impressive work, done in less than 3 hours, with a comprehensive plan to create a foundation to support retired caregivers. But it wasn't enough for Amelia. 3 days later, Michael's lawyers confirmed that both the café and the cleaning company now belonged to him. The first executive orders were to raise the wages of all employees, especially the older ones, and implement full benefits. It was a start, but still not the solution he was looking for. Michael arranged to meet Amelia again, this time in a quiet park near her apartment. He arrived early, sat on a bench, and watched the children playing on the swings. He couldn't help but wonder if Amelia had ever brought her sister's children there, or later Lucia. When she arrived, Michael was struck by how much more tired she seemed than a few days ago. The night work was clearly taking its toll. I'm surprised you're still in San Francisco, she said, carefully settling on the bench beside him. You don't have rockets to launch, she teased. Some things are more important than rockets, Michael replied. Have you thought about my offer? Amelia sighed. Michael, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I know what this is. What you think is a rich man trying to ease his conscience by helping an old lady? Her voice was gentle but firm. I don't need rescues. Michael decided to change tactics. I spoke to my mother, Amelia. Amelia's expression shifted slightly, a flash of something like alarm. She told me to ask about the secrets she's kept all these years. Michael continued watching her closely and she said, Some of them aren't mine to share. Amelia turned her gaze to the children. Your mother talks too much, doesn't she? She's really good at keeping secrets. Michael paused. Why did you really leave North Carolina? That was a long time ago. Not for me. Not since I found you again. They sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of the children playing filling the space between them. Finally, Michael spoke again. I've been thinking about what you taught me when I was young, about looking at problems differently. Amelia smiled slightly. You've always been good at that. I'm trying to look at this situation differently too. He turned to face her directly. I want to help you, but not out of guilt or pity, because you are important to me, because you help shape who I am. Amelia, let me finish. I'm not offering you a job you don't want or money. I won't accept that. I'm asking for your help with something real. Amelia raised an eyebrow. What kind of help? My children. Michael simply said, they are growing up in wealth and privilege. I'm worried they'll never develop the kind of resilience and creativity I learned when I was a child. Parents worry about their children, yes, but not all parents have someone like you, someone who knows how to nurture those qualities. Michael leaned forward. I'm not asking you to be their babysitter. I'm asking you to be their teacher, their guide, just like you were for me." Amelia studied him carefully. "You want me to teach your children at my age? Age doesn't matter. Wisdom does." He smiled. "Besides, it would only be a few hours a week at my house in Charlotte, and I'd pay you for it. Of course, it's a job, not a favor." Amelia looked skeptical. "And what exactly would I be teaching them?" "The same things you taught me: how to think creatively, how to persevere when things get tough, how to see problems as opportunities." For the first time since they had reunited, Michael saw a genuine spark of interest in Amelia's eyes. "I'd need to meet them first, to see if we're a good match." "Absolutely." Michael felt a wave of hope. "And there's one more thing I'd like to discuss." Amelia had a surprised expression. "My great niece." "Why?" "Because she seems like someone my companies might want to invest in." Amelia frowned. "She's brilliant with computers and math. We're always looking for talent. She's just in community college. But some of the best engineers I know never finished college. What matters is skill and motivation. If she has half your determination, she's already ahead of most candidates." Amelia fell silent, considering his words. Michael could almost see her mind working, weighing her pride against the opportunities for Lucia. "You're a very persistent man," she said finally. "I had a great teacher." A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I'll think about the kids and ask Lucia if she wants to meet you." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. For now it was enough. As they sat together on the bench, watching the children play, Michael felt a strange sense of peace. The path ahead was still unclear, but it was beginning to open up. What neither of them realized was that this simple conversation in the park was setting in motion events that would reveal the last and greatest secret of all, one that had been kept from Michael throughout his entire life. 2 days passed without news from Amelia. Michael tried to focus on his regular work video conferences with his executive teams, project reviews for upcoming new product launches, but his mind kept drifting back to the elderly woman in Charlotte. His mother had extended her stay at home, but remained frustratingly vague about the past. "Some stories aren't mine to tell," she repeated whenever he pressed for details. On the third day, Michael's phone rang with an unknown number. "Mr. Jordan, this is Lucia Vega." Michael sat up straighter. "Lucia, thank you for calling. My great-aunt said she wants to meet me." The young woman's voice was direct, with a hint of skepticism that reminded him of Amelia. "That's right. I understand you're interested in engineering." "I am, but I don't understand why Michael Jordan wants to meet me." Michael smiled at her frankness. "Your great-aunt was very important to me when I was young. She spoke very highly of your abilities. I'm always looking for talent." There was a pause on the line. "She won't accept your job offer." The statement caught Michael off guard. "What are you talking about?" "We have no secrets," Lucia said simply. "She raised me after my grandmother passed away. She says this feels like charity." "It's not charity. It's respect, Lucia. When you're poor, you get good at recognizing when rich people feel guilty." Lucia's tone wasn't accusatory but firm. "She won't accept your money no matter how you package it." Michael felt a flash of frustration. "Then why did you call?" "Because she passed out at work yesterday." Michael's heart froze. "Is she okay?" "She's at a hospital in Highland. They said it was exhaustion. Her blood pressure is very high." Lucia's voice wavered a little. "She made me promise not to tell you, but I think that's stupid." "I'm on my way," Michael said, already standing. "Which room?" 312. "But Mr. Jordan?" "Yes." "Don't tell her I called you. She'll never forgive me." 20 minutes later, Michael was walking through the hospital halls with his security team, causing a small stir among the staff. He found room 312 and stopped at the door. Amelia looked small in the hospital bed, an IV in her arm and monitors beeping softly beside her. Her eyes were closed, her silver hair spread out on the pillow. For a moment, Michael was transported back to his childhood when he had been sick with a high fever, and Amelia stayed by his bedside all night, cooling his forehead with a wet cloth. Now the positions were reversed. He entered silently, sitting down beside the bed. Amelia's eyes fluttered open. "Lucia," she blinked in confusion. "How did you know?" "Someone recognized you as my former nanny. Word travels fast when a billionaire is involved. Amelia tried to sit up, shuddering. You shouldn't have come, it's nothing serious. Passing out at work is serious, Amelia. She looked away, embarrassed. I just got dizzy. The manager overreacted. The doctor says your blood pressure is dangerously high. Doctors always say that to old people. She waved her hand dismissively. I'll be fine after I rest a bit. Michael leaned forward. That's exactly why I want to help you. You're working yourself to exhaustion. I've been working since I was 12, Michael. There's a difference between working and slowly killing yourself, Amelia. Amelia's expression hardened. I didn't ask for your help. No, you'd rather collapse on the coffee shop floor than accept help from someone who cares about you? Michael's frustration erupted. You know what you taught me when I was young? That it's okay to fail? That it's okay to accept help when you need it? Why can't you follow your own advice? Amelia looked stunned by his outburst. I'm sorry, Michael said more gently, but I can't just watch you work yourself to death when I have the means to help. It's not that simple, she whispered. Then explain it to me, Amelia. She was silent for a long moment, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. When I left South Africa, I promised myself two things: that I would never depend on anyone again, and that I would never let what happened there define the rest of my life. What exactly happened, Amelia? The whole truth. She met his gaze. My father was a tough man, you know. Michael nodded. He was especially tough on you. He had very specific ideas about how to raise a child. Amelia's voice softened. You were different, sensitive, creative, always asking questions he couldn't answer. And he didn't like that you provided answers. No. He wanted to toughen you up, make you tough. She looked away again. His methods were cruel. I tried to protect you when I could, encourage the spark I saw in you, and that's why he forced you to leave. Michael nodded. On the last night he hurt you badly. When I threatened to report him, he told me no one would believe a foreign nanny talking about a prominent businessman. He was right, of course. Then my mother helped you escape? Yes, she arranged everything. The visa, the place to stay in California, with my sister's eyes, Amelia, filled with tears. Leaving you was the hardest thing I've ever done. I still dream about it, little one, waiting for a goodbye that never came. Michael took her hand. It felt small and fragile in his touch. You did what you had to do. No, she said firmly. I did what I chose to do. That's the difference. Even when everything was decided for me, I still made a choice. To survive, to work, to build a life here. Understanding dawned on Michael. And that's why you won't accept my help, because it feels like it would take that choice away from you. Yes, she squeezed his hand. My life hasn't been easy, but it's been mine. Every decision, every struggle, every victory, mine. They sat in silence for a moment, the monitors beeping steadily. Michael spoke carefully. I talked about a principle I used to build my businesses, something I learned watching you solve problems when you were a child. Amelia looked intrigued, despite herself. What principle? Michael leaned in closer. The best solution is the one that benefits everyone involved. And what if I could find a way to help you that also helps me? A true exchange of value, not charity. For the first time, Amelia seemed genuinely interested. What do you have in mind? Let me think about it, Michael said. But first, you need to get better. Will you at least let me cover your medical expenses? Consider it an advance on your future as a consultant. Amelia hesitated, then gave a small nod. In advance. I'll earn every penny. I wouldn't expect anything less. When she left the hospital, Michael's mind was racing with ideas. He now understood that helping Amelia wasn't just about money or comfort. It was about honoring her dignity and choices. And for the first time, he began to see that she still had much more to teach him. Lessons about pride, independence, and the true meaning of self-determination. By the time Amelia was discharged from the hospital 3 days later, Michael had developed a new strategy. His mother's words echoed in his mind, asking for her help with something real. Not a made-up consulting job, not a charity disguised as a job, but something genuine that would allow Amelia to give as much as she received. Michael arranged to pick Amelia up from the hospital. When he arrived at her room, she was already dressed and waiting, her few belongings packed in a small plastic bag. "The doctor says you need 2 weeks of rest," Michael said as he helped her into his car. "No work?" Amelia frowned. "I can't afford 2 weeks without pay." Michael saw her expression darken and quickly added, "Remember our deal, medical expenses as an advance." "This isn't medical," she protested. "The orders are medical." Michael's tone was firm. "I spoke with your managers. They're both very understanding." Of course, they now worked for him, but Amelia didn't need to know that yet. Instead of taking her to his apartment, Michael directed his driver to an address, a modest but comfortable guest house on a quiet street in Palo Alto. "Where are we going?" Amelia asked, noticing they were headed away from Oakland. "My house," Michael replied, "or rather my guest house, just until you're fully recovered." Amelia started to protest, but Michael continued, "Please, Amelia, I'm worried about you being alone right now. Consider it a favor to me. It would ease my mind." She studied him carefully and then sighed. "For a few days, then I'll go back to my apartment." The guest house was simple but pleasant. A living room with large windows overlooking a small garden, a bedroom with a comfortable bed, and a kitchen stocked with food. It was important to note that everything was on one level, no stairs to navigate. "This is too much," Amelia said, looking around. "It's been empty for months." Michael lied. "Actually, my team prepared it specifically for you, following my detailed instructions about what an 86-year-old woman with arthritis might need." "I want to show you something," he said, guiding her to the window. Across the garden, they could see children playing. "My kids are here this week," he said. "They don't usually stay in this house, but they're visiting." Amelia watched the children with interest. "They seem excited." "That's one word for it," Michael said with a smile. "The nanny left last month, said they were impossible to manage." That wasn't entirely true. The nanny had simply moved to another state, but it served its purpose. "Kids are never impossible," Amelia said, a hint of her old firmness returning. "Just misunderstood sometimes." "I thought you'd say that." Michael turned to face her. "I've been thinking about our conversation in the hospital, about finding a way to help each other." Amelia raised an eyebrow. "Yes, I wasn't entirely honest before when I said I was worried about my kids growing up privileged. That was true, but there's more." Michael ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture from his childhood that Amelia immediately recognized. "The truth is, I don't know how to talk to them sometimes, how to connect. I'm not good at emotional stuff." This admission was completely genuine, and Amelia could hear it in his voice. "My work keeps me busy," he continued. "Too busy. They have everything they could want materially, but not enough of what really matters. Time," Maribel said softly. "Children need time, yes, and someone who knows how to listen." Michael met her gaze. "How did you understand me?" A curious expression appeared on Maribel's face. "Do you want me to spend time with your children?" she asked. "I want you to help me be a better father," Michael said honestly. "Show me what I'm missing, what they need." For the first time since they reconnected, Maribel's expression opened completely, the tiredness and pride giving way to something warmer. "It's something I can do," she said quietly. "Just a few hours a week," Michael added. "When you're feeling better, you'll be doing me a real service, Maribel. And yes, I would pay you for your time, not as charity, but because the advice of someone like you is valuable." Maribel walked back to the window watching the children. "What are their names?" Michael replied, "Xavier and Griffin are the twins. They're 16. Kai, Saxon, and Daman are younger. And there's X. He's just a child." Michael joined her at the window. "They're good kids, but they live in bubbles of privilege. I want them to learn the things you taught me. Grace, empathy, seeing problems as opportunities." "Children learn by watching," Maribel said. "Show them these qualities in yourself, and they'll follow." "That's exactly the kind of insight I need," Michael said eagerly. "Will you help us, Maribel? Not as an employee, but as a teacher, a mentor to them and to me." Maribel was silent for a long moment, considering. "I'll meet them first," she finally said, "to see if we understand each other." "Of course," Michael tried to contain his excitement. "When you're feeling stronger tomorrow." Maribel decided the children shouldn't wait until the next day. Michael brought his younger children to the guest house for lunch. He briefly coached them, explaining that Maribel was a special friend who knew him when he was their age. The meeting started awkwardly. The children were shy, Maribel formal, but then the youngest ex spilled his juice, and Maribel handled it efficiently, so kindly without rebuke, just quick action and a small joke about gravity experiments, which broke the tension. By the end of the meal, Saxon was showing her his science project, and Damon asked if she knew any good stories. "About 100, Maribel replied with a smile that took years off her face. Later, when the children returned to the main house, Maribel turned to Michael. "They're wonderful, Michael, but I see what you mean. They're looking for something, connection," she said. "The thing I'm not always good at giving them," Michael said. "We'll work on that," Maribel replied, and Michael felt a wave of hope. In the following weeks, a routine developed. 3 afternoons a week, Maribel spent time with the children, reading stories, helping with homework, teaching them to make simple recipes from her childhood. Michael joined when he could, watching and learning from her approach. She was a natural with them, just as she had been with him, patient but firm, encouraging, curious while setting clear boundaries, and always listening to what they were really saying under their words. The children flourished under her attention. Even the teenagers, initially disdainful, began stopping by the guest house to ask for advice or just to chat. More surprisingly, Michael found himself sharing things with Maribel that he rarely discussed with anyone. His fears for the future, doubts about his own abilities as a father, even the loneliness that sometimes accompanied his success. What had started as a strategy to help Maribel in some way became a healing process for his entire family and for himself. And still, in quiet moments, when he caught a look in her eyes or his mother's, he felt there was more to the story, something important left unsaid. While Maribel became a valuable presence in his family's life, Michael was quietly working on a much bigger project. Every morning, while she spent time with the children, he locked himself in his home office for what his team came to call the guardian angel meetings. Today, he faced a screen filled with the faces of architects, lawyers, social workers, and financial advisors. The property in Menlo Park had been secured, the real estate director reported. 30 acres with existing structures that could be renovated. Zoning permits obtained, schedule. Michael asked for 4 months for basic renovations, 6 for full completion. Michael shook his head. "No, not fast enough. I want the residents to move in within 3 months. Mr. Jordan, that's almost impossible." "Almost impossible is different from impossible," Michael interrupted. "Double the teams, work in shifts, do whatever it takes." After the meeting, his chief of staff stayed on the call. "Sir, may I ask a personal question?" "Go ahead." "This project will cost almost $50 million, not counting ongoing operations, and it's moving at an unprecedented speed, even for your standards." She hesitated. "Why is this so urgent?" Michael thought of Maribel, how her hands trembled when she was tired, the way she still insisted on helping her housekeeper with the dishes despite her arthritis. "Because time is the only resource we can't make more of," he answered, "and some people have already given too much of theirs." Later that afternoon, Michael found Maribel in the garden with his youngest son. She was showing him how to plant marigold seeds in small pots. "They'll turn into beautiful flowers," she was explaining, "but only if you remember to water them every day, even on weekends." The boy asked seriously, especially on weekends. Amelia replied that living things can't take days off from needing care. Just watching them from the door won't work. The simple wisdom in her words was exactly the kind of practical knowledge he hoped to preserve in his guardian angel project. In recent weeks, through careful conversations with Amelia, he had identified dozens of other elderly caregivers in similar situations to hers. People who had dedicated their lives to caring for others, but ended up with nothing for themselves in old age. The team had interviewed 20 of them so far, gathering their stories and insights. The patterns were painfully consistent. Decades of underpaid work, no retirement, health problems caused by years of physical labor, and a fierce pride that kept them working long after they should have stopped. "Dad, look what Miss Amelia taught me." His son held up a small pot proudly. "That's excellent," Michael Jordan said, joining them. "What else did Miss Amelia teach you today?" "That plants are like people. They need different things to grow right. A wise lesson," Michael Jordan said, looking at Amelia with a smile. After his son ran off to show his siblings his planting project, Michael Jordan sat down beside Amelia on the garden bench. "The children loved you," he said, "especially the younger ones. They know when someone really sees them. That's all they really want, to be seen and heard," Amelia replied. "You've always seen me," Michael Jordan said quietly, "even when my own father didn't." Something flickered in Amelia's eyes, that same look he'd noticed before, a shadow of tacit knowledge. Before he could ask, his phone rang. It was Lucia. "Mr. Jordan, I just got a call from MIT. They say they've reopened my application for the fall semester with a full scholarship." Her voice was a mix of excitement and suspicion. "Did you have something to do with this?" "I may have made a call," Michael Jordan admitted, "but they wouldn't have accepted you if you weren't qualified. I can't accept charity." "It's not charity, Lucia. It's an investment in talent. Trust me, I know a promising engineer when I see one, and your aunt told me enough about you to recognize the potential there." There was a pause on the line. "Does she know you did this?" "Not yet." "She'll be proud but uncomfortable," Lucia predicted. "Just so you know, I'm counting on the proud part overcoming the uncomfortable," Michael Jordan said. "Will you accept the scholarship?" "Yes, it's what I've always wanted." "Good. And one more thing. I'd like to offer you a paid internship at SpaceX next summer. Again, it's not charity. We need smart people." After the call ended, Michael Jordan turned to find Amelia watching him with narrowed eyes. "What did you do?" She didn't ask, but she knew he was awake for something that night that Lucia had called her great aunt about. Michael Jordan could hear Amelia's excited exclamations from the guest house. Later, she found him in his office. "You helped Lucia get into MIT, she said bluntly. "I made a call for her. Grades and test scores did the rest." Amelia's eyes were shining, but no tears fell. "Do you know what this means for her? For our family? No one has ever had such an opportunity. She deserves it. She'll make it. And the internship, too," Michael Jordan added. Amelia shook her head in wonder. "When you were a boy, you told me you'd build rockets one day. I believed you. So now my Luke will help build them, too." She stepped forward and took his hands in hers, worn. "Thank you, Ellie." It was the first time she had genuinely thanked him, without reservations, for his help. And Michael Jordan felt a warmth spread across his chest. This was what he had been looking for, a way to help that honored his pride instead of hurting it. Encouraged by this success, Michael Jordan accelerated work on the Guardian Angel project. His team had already identified 50 elderly caregivers, former nannies, housekeepers, home health aides, and others over 65 still working out of necessity rather than choice. The architects designed a community with private apartments, common spaces, gardens, and a medical clinic. But what made the concept unique was its underlying philosophy. The residents would receive housing and sustenance with opportunities to continue contributing in meaningful ways, but also opportunities to share their wisdom through mentorship programs, childcare training, and community outreach. It would not be a nursing home, but an educational center where the residents would be the teachers. As the weeks passed, Amelia grew stronger. The good food and regular medical care that came with life at Michael Jordan's guest house drastically improved her health. But more than that, the time with the children gave her a new sense of purpose. At night, as they sat in the garden watching the sunset, Michael's mother joined them. She had extended her stay in California indefinitely, claiming she liked the weather, but Michael suspected it was because she wanted to be near Amelia. The two women had easily rekindled their old friendship, though sometimes their conversations would stop abruptly when Michael entered the room. "About the lullaby Amelia taught X," his mother said while sitting next to her. "She used to sing to you." I remember Michael saying something about angels watching over children. Amelia nodded, warning him about the Heaven's Gate. "You had nightmares as a child," his mother explained, "and Amelia was the only one who could calm you." "I still know all the words." Amelia began to sing, her thin but sweet voice filling the night air as the familiar melody washed over him. Michael was transported back to his childhood bedroom, to the comfort of Amelia's presence during the scary darkness of the night. The lullaby spoke of guardian angels watching over sleeping children and protecting them from evil. It had comforted him then, and somehow it still did now. That night, Michael made a decision. The next day would be Amelia's 86th birthday. and it was time to show her what he had been building, a legacy worthy of her life dedicated to caring for others. What he didn't know was that his mother and Amelia had made their own decision. It was finally time to tell the truth, something they had hidden for over 40 years. Amelia's birthday morning started with a surprise breakfast prepared by Michael's children, who had decorated the guest house with colorful paper flowers and handmade cards. Even the teenagers had participated, with Xavier baking a cake under the supervision of the housekeeper. 86 years young, they announced as they brought in the cake with lit candles. Amelia's eyes sparkled with emotion as the children sang to her, first in English, then in Spanish, a song they had secretly practiced with Michael's mother. "Blow out the candles," Miss Mari asked, urging little X to make a wish. "Some wishes should be shared," said Amelia, smiling. "I wish that all of you would grow up with kind hearts and brave minds." "That's not a real wish," protested Damien. "It has to be something for you," he added. "When you're my age," said Amelia gently, "the best wishes are for others." Michael watched from the door, moved by the scene. In just a few weeks, Amelia had become an essential part of his children's lives and his own. Today, he would show her how much her influence mattered. After breakfast, Michael approached Amelia with a small box wrapped in silver paper. "Happy birthday," he said, handing it to her. She opened it, carefully preserving the wrapping paper in a way that spoke of a lifetime of frugality. Inside was a vintage silver locket on a delicate chain. "It's beautiful," she whispered as she opened it. Michael encouraged her to look inside the locket, where there was a small photograph of a young Michael, perhaps 6 years old, smiling with 2 missing front teeth. Amelia's hand flew to her mouth. "I had this photo," she said, astonished. "In South Africa, I kept it in my Bible, but when I left, my mother found it in your room after you left." Michael explained that his mother had saved it all these years. Amelia gently touched the photo and closed the locket. "Thank you, Michael. I will cherish this." "There's more," Michael said. "I'd like to take you to a special place today." She raised her eyebrows. "Where?" "It's a surprise," he replied. An hour later, they were in Michael's car, with Amelia in the front passenger seat and his mother in the back. Michael insisted on driving alone, without his usual security detail. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Amelia asked as they turned onto a road, a place where billionaires don't typically drive. "Today is special," Michael replied. "And where are we going?" his mother asked. "I want privacy," Michael responded, keeping his eyes on the rearview mirror. They drove for 30 minutes, leaving Palo Alto behind and heading toward Menlo Park. Finally, Michael turned onto a tree-lined road that cut through what was once a corporate campus. "What's this place?" his mother asked. "You'll see," Michael replied, unable to hide the excitement in his voice. When they reached the final curve, a large sign appeared, "Guardian Angels Village," with a smaller caption underneath, "Where wisdom finds a home." Amelia leaned forward. "Guardian Angels?" she asked. Michael parked in front of what was once the main building of the campus, now transformed with fresh paint, large windows, and a welcoming entrance, with gardens on both sides. Several people were waiting near the doors. "Michael, what is this?" Amelia asked again as he helped her out of the car. "Something I've been working on," he replied. "Something inspired by you." Michael's chief of staff approached and said, "Miss Vega, welcome to Guardian Angels Village. We're honored to have you here for our opening day." Amelia looked puzzled as she entered. The interior was filled with open, bright spaces, completely renovated, with comfortable furniture and large windows overlooking gardens and patios. "This was originally going to be a new research center," Michael explained, "but I found a better use for it." They entered a large community room, where a model of the campus was displayed on a table. Michael guided Amelia to it. "Guardian Angels Village is a living and learning community for retired caregivers," he explained. "Nannies, housekeepers, home health aides, people who spent their lives caring for others, often at the expense of their own well-being." Amelia looked at the model and then at Michael. "You built this for people like you?" she asked. "Yes," Michael confirmed. "People who deserve security and dignity in their later years, but still have so much to share." The director of the facility continued his explanation as they moved through the building. The residents receive comfortable apartments, full medical assistance, and a living stipend. In exchange, they participate in our educational programs, sharing their knowledge with young parents, childcare providers, workers, and families. They visited a model apartment, a one-bedroom unit with a small kitchen, an accessible bathroom, and a sunny living room. Everything was designed with older residents in mind, from grab bars to easy-access cabinets in the kitchen. "We have 50 units ready today," the director explained. "Another 50 will be completed in 3 months." Each resident also has access to all the community spaces, gardens, library, teaching kitchens, and classrooms. As they walked through the building, Amelia remained silent. Michael couldn't read her expression. Was she impressed, overwhelmed, or offended? They ended the tour in a beautiful garden in the courtyard, at the center of the complex, with winding stone paths between raised beds filled with vegetables. Flower benches were placed in shaded spots, and a small fountain bubbled peacefully in the center. "This is the heart of the garden," Michael explained. "Each resident can have their own plot if they want. I know how much you love gardening." Amelia walked slowly along the paths, touching the leaves and flowers as she passed. Finally, she turned to Michael. "Is this why you've been so busy the past few weeks?" she asked. He nodded. "What do you think?" "Beautiful," she admitted. "But Michael, this must have cost millions." "53 million to be exact," Michael said, "with an annual operating budget of 12 million. But it's worth every penny." His mother, who had remained silent during the tour, finally spoke. "And you want Amelia to live here?" "Not just live here," Michael corrected. "I want her to be the founding director to help shape what this place becomes." Amelia's eyes widened. "Director? But I have no experience running something like this." "You have the most important experience," Michael insisted. "You understand caregiving better than anyone I know. What we need is your heart, your wisdom." Amelia walked over to a bench and sat down, suddenly feeling the weight of her 86 years. Michael sat beside her, concerned. "It's too much," she said quietly. "Too generous." "It's not just for you," Michael explained. "It's for everyone like you. And it's not charity. It's recognition of value. These residents won't be recipients. They will be teachers, mentors. Their knowledge matters." Amelia looked around the garden again. Then, seeing the hopeful look on Michael's face, her expression was complex, moved, yet still troubled. "I need time to think," she finally said. "Of course," Michael reassured. "Take all the time you need." As they were preparing to leave, Michael noticed his mother pulling Amelia aside. They whispered to each other, heads close together. His mother nodded at whatever Amelia said, squeezing her hand reassuringly. On the way home, Amelia was thoughtful, looking out the window at the passing landscape. Michael wondered if he had pushed too hard, if he was moving too fast, if his grand gesture was overwhelming her instead of honoring her. When they returned home, Amelia turned to him. "Can we talk privately?" "There's something important I need to tell you." Michael looked at his mother in the rearview mirror. She nodded slowly. "It's time, Ellie," his mother said softly. "There's something we've been hiding from you for a long time, all three of us." She said this in Michael's office, him behind his desk, Amelia and his mother in comfortable chairs facing him. The birthday festivities and the excitement from the tour of the Guardian Angel Village had faded, replaced by a heavy silence, full of unsaid words. Michael looked at his mother, then at Amelia, noticing the tension in both women's postures. "What is it?" he asked. His mother looked at Amelia, who nodded slightly. "You should be the one to tell him," Amelia said, taking a deep breath. His mother began. "When you were a child, Ellie, your father and I had problems in our marriage. You know that." "Of course I know," Michael said. "You divorced when I was 8. "Yes, but the problem started long before that." She looked at her hands. "Your father wasn't always kind to me or to you kids." Michael's jaw tightened. This wasn't news to him, though his mother rarely spoke about it directly. "I remember that, during the worst times, Amelia was often the only stability in your life. When I couldn't be there, when I was working, or when your father and I were fighting, she was the one who provided the love and security you needed." "I know that too," Michael said, looking at Amelia with affection. "That's why finding her again meant so much to me." His mother continued, her voice growing tense. What you don't know is why I hired Amelia in the first place. It wasn't just because we needed childcare. Michael furrowed his brow, confused. What other reason could there be? His mother and Amelia exchanged a look. Amelia reached into her bag and pulled out a yellowed envelope, worn at the edges with age, which she handed to Michael. Before you open it, she said, you should know that everything I said about taking care of you as a child was true. Every moment, every lesson, every bedtime story, all of that was real. My love for you was genuine and unchanging. Michael, genuinely intrigued, turned the envelope over, which was addressed to Mrs. Amelia Vega, in his mother's handwriting, stamped with a postal seal from 1979, just before Amelia came to work for their family. He looked at them, reading questioningly. His mother insisted softly, "Read it." Michael carefully extracted the letter, fragile with time, and unfolded it. It was dated February 12th, 1979. Dear Mrs. Vega, I am writing to you based on the highest recommendation from my cousin in Barcelona, who speaks so warmly of your care for her children during your years with her family. My situation is complicated and delicate. I have 3 young children, with my oldest son, Michael, being particularly special and sensitive. He is extraordinarily bright but is struggling in his environment, where his father does not understand him and is often harsh in his treatment. I am looking for more than just a babysitter. I need someone who can provide stability and affection when I cannot be there. Someone who appreciates my son's unique mind and protects his spirit from those who may try to break him, including, I regret to say, his own father. There is another thing you should know, something I haven't told my children. Before I married my current husband, I was briefly married to another man when I was very young. That marriage ended, but it gave me my firstborn son, Michael. My current husband legally adopted him, but he has never fully accepted him as his own. I fear that this is at the root of the difficulties between Michael and him. Michael does not know this truth, and I ask you to keep this confidence. I believe that it would only confuse him and hurt him at this tender age. I am offering you a position in our home with generous compensation and comfortable living arrangements. More importantly, I am offering you the chance to help me protect a remarkable child during a difficult time. Please consider my offer. My son needs someone like you in his life, with hope and gratitude. Michael read the letter twice, his hands trembling slightly. Then he looked into his mother's eyes, moving between her and Amelia. Errol isn't my biological father? His mother shook her head. No, Ellie. I was briefly married before him, to a man named Joshua Haldeman. The marriage didn't last, but I was already pregnant with you when it ended. Why didn't you ever tell me? Michael asked, his voice unusually calm. First, you were too young to understand. Then when Errol legally adopted you, it seemed unnecessarily complicated. And when you were old enough, Errol had already been your father for so long that... She stopped. I made a mistake by hiding this from you. I see that now. Michael turned to Amelia. Did you know from the start? She nodded. Your mother trusted me with this secret. She wanted you to have someone in your life who understood your whole situation, even if you didn't understand it. That's why you were so protective of me, Michael said, understanding, comprehension dawning. That's why you confronted him, even when it cost you your job. He was especially hard on you because, deep down, he never truly saw you as his son, Amelia confirmed. I couldn't stand by and watch him try to break your spirit. When Amelia left, I was devastated, his mother added. She was the only one, besides me, who knew the truth, who understood what you were going through. That's why I helped her come to America. That's why I sent her money for as long as I could. She sacrificed everything to protect you. Michael stood up and walked to the window, his back to them, as he processed this revelation. All these years he had believed Errol was his biological father, a man for whom he had complex feelings, whose approval he had always sought, but who, in a way, had rejected him. That explains a lot, he said finally, still looking out the window. Why I always felt different, why he treated me differently from my siblings. You were different, Amelia said gently, but not because of who your father was, but because of who you were, a child with an extraordinary mind and a sensitive heart. Michael Jordan turned back to them. Who was he, Joshua Haldeman? What do you know about him? His mother sighed. He was brilliant, creative, adventurous. He had big dreams and the courage to pursue them. In that way, you are very much like him, son. Is he still alive? No, dear. He died many years ago. Years before you were even in school. Michael absorbed this, his expression unreadable. Then he looked at Amelia. When I found you again, why didn't you tell me? Then it wasn't mine. Truth be told, she simply replied, I promised your mother all those years ago. But when you showed me the guardian angel's village today, she looked at her mother and nodded encouragingly. We decided it was time for you to know everything. Is there anything else you should know, Michael? His mother said something I'm not proud of. He waited silently. When I could no longer afford to help Amelia financially, around the time you started your first company, I asked her not to contact you. I was afraid the truth would come out if you reconnected with her. I was still protecting a secret that should never have been kept in the first place. Michael's jaw tightened. So even when she was struggling to work several jobs in her 70s and 80s, she stayed away because of a promise to you. Yes, his mother admitted in her small voice. She is a woman of her word. Michael returned to his desk and picked up the letter again, running his fingers over the faded ink. His whole life, he had defined himself in part in opposition to a man who he now discovered was not his biological father. It was too much to process. I understand if you're angry, his mother said. You have every right to be. Michael was silent for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled faintly. Actually, it's a relief in some ways. I always wondered why I was so different from him, from Errol. Now I know. He turned to Amelia. You've been more of a father to me than ever. You saw me clearly when he couldn't or wouldn't. I've always believed in you, Amelia said softly. From day one. Michael sat at his desk and opened a drawer. He removed a file folder and placed it on the desk. There's something I need to tell you both as well, he said. Something my investigator found that I haven't mentioned yet. He opened the folder and removed a newspaper clipping, sliding it across the desk to Amelia. It was from an Educational Foundation newsletter dated 3 years ago. A small article highlighted donors who contributed to a scholarship fund for underprivileged students. Near the fund, in a list of names, was Amelia Vega, $200, which you donated to my foundation, Michael said. 3 years ago, when the article mentioned that I was the primary benefactor. You gave $200 when you probably didn't have even that to spare. Amelia looked embarrassed. It wasn't much. It was all I had, Michael corrected her. Proportionally, it may be the largest donation I've ever received. I saw your name in the paper. Amelia explained that the foundation was helping children who couldn't afford school. It seemed like something you'd care about. You contributed to my work, even when you had almost nothing, Michael said, his voice thick with emotion. Even when you thought we'd never meet again. I was proud of you, she said simply. I wanted to be part of what you were building, even if in a small way. Michael looked at the two women who had shaped his life in such profound ways. His mother, who had made difficult choices to protect him, and Amelia, who sacrificed her own safety to stay with him. Both had kept secrets, but both acted out of love. I think I understand now, he said quietly, why the Guardian Angels Village matters so much to me. It's not just about helping people like you, Amelia. It's about recognizing the kind of love and care you gave me. Something that can't be measured in dollars. The decision was made. I still want you to be part of the project in whatever capacity feels right for you. Not out of obligation, but because your wisdom and heart are exactly what it needs. Amelia smiled, tears in her eyes. I would be honored, Michael. As the three of them sat together, the weight of decades of secrets was finally lifted. There was more to discuss, more to understand, but the truth, however complicated, was finally spoken. What none of them had yet realized was that Amelia had one more secret to share, the most remarkable of all. 1 year later, the village of Guardian Angels was thriving. What had started as Michael's project had become something much more significant, a model being replicated in 3 other states with international expansion planned for the following year. The 50 original residents had become a united community, each contributing their unique wisdom to the program. Some taught cooking classes to young parents, others offered training in childcare, and some even consulted with tech companies on product design for the elderly. At the center of it all was Amelia, who embraced her role as founding director with unexpected vigor at 87 years old. She had found a new purpose that energized her instead of draining her. The modest apartment that Michael had originally designed for her had been modified at her insistence. "If I'm going to live here," she told him, "I want a place big enough for Lucia to stay when she visits from MIT." Today, Michael was visiting the village for the one-year celebration. The children insisted on coming too, even the teenagers, who had developed a genuine fondness for the residents. After the official ceremony with speeches and a ribbon cutting for the new medical center, Michael found himself in Amelia's apartment for a quieter meeting. His mother was there, along with Lucia, back from her first year at MIT and full of stories about her robotics project. "Your daughter is brilliant," Amelia told Michael with pride. She had started calling Lucia her daughter instead of her great niece, and the young woman didn't seem to mind. Like mother, like daughter. Michael responded with a smile. As the afternoon wore on, the younger children grew restless. "Why don't you go explore the garden?" Amelia suggested. "Just be careful with Mr. Garcia's tomato plants. He's very protective of them." After they left, accompanied by Luca, Amelia turned to Michael. "There's something I wanted to show you. I was waiting for the right moment," she said. She went to her room and came back with a small wooden box, its surface smooth from years of handling. She placed it on the coffee table between them. "What is this?" Michael asked. "Something I've kept for 40 years, Amelia replied. "Every move, every hardship, even when I had to sell my wedding ring to pay the rent, I never thought of parting with this." She carefully opened the box. Inside, Michael could see what looked like papers and small objects. Amelia removed a bundle of yellowed pages tied with a faded ribbon. "Do you recognize this?" she asked, handing them to him. Michael unfolded the first page and looked on in amazement. It was a child's drawing of a rocket, labeled in the handwriting of a 6-year-old, "Spaceship to Mars." He flipped through the pages, more drawings, rough blueprints, lists of inventions, even early attempts at computer code, written in pencil on lined paper. "I saved all of this," Amelia said softly. "Every drawing, every idea you shared with me when I left South Africa. These were the only personal things I took with me, besides clothes and my Bible." Michael looked up, deeply moved. "You kept all of this all these years?" he asked. "Of course," she said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "I knew it would be important one day, just like I knew you would be important." "How could you possibly know?" Michael asked. Amelia exchanged a glance with her mother, who nodded encouragingly. "There's something else I never told you," Amelia said. "Something the night before I left South Africa." Michael waited, feeling this was the final piece of the puzzle. "My mother came to my room very late. She was scared, afraid of what my father might do, afraid of her future without me." There, to soften her harshness, Amelia's voice became gentler. "She asked me to make a promise." "What kind of promise?" Michael asked. "She asked me to always look for the special light in you, even from afar, to keep faith in your potential when others might try to diminish it." Michael turned to his mother. "Is this true?" She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I was desperate. I knew you'd be lost without Amelia, but I couldn't stop her from leaving. It was an impossible request, asking someone to protect a child thousands of miles away, but I promised. Anyway," Amelia continued, "I kept that promise. I followed your progress through every newspaper article I could find. I saved every mention of your name and all the photographs you sent in the box." Again, she pulled out a stack of carefully preserved newspaper clippings. Articles about basketball, advertisements, your victories, each showing Michael Jordan's upward trajectory. "When I couldn't afford newspapers, I went to the library. The librarians thought I was strange, this old woman always asking for articles about Michael Jordan." She smiled at the memory. "I told them, you were my son. It was easier than explaining the truth," Amelia said. Michael stared at the collection of clippings, stunned by the depth of her dedication. "You've been taking care of me all this time from afar?" "Yes, Amelia," I confirmed. "I couldn't be there in person, but I carried you in my heart. Every one of your successes felt like a victory for both of us. That's why you donated to my foundation. Michael realized it wasn't just about helping the kids. It was her way of still being a part of his life. Maybe nonsense, she said, but it mattered to me. His mother wiped away her tears. I never imagined she would take my desperate request so literally, so faithfully. When you told me you found her working at that cafe, I couldn't believe it. Michael carefully gathered the drawings and clippings, putting them back in the box. Then he took Amelia's hands in his. I always thought the gift in this story was what I could give you. Security, comfort, recognition of your worth, he said. But I was wrong. Oh, Amelia! Michael raised an eyebrow. The real gift was what you gave me. Unwavering belief when I needed it, even when I didn't know you were there. You kept the faith in that little boy who drew basketball hoops. Michael looked around at the home Amelia had made within the community he had built. At 86, she had finally found the security and purpose she deserved, and he, at the height of his success, reconnected with the woman who helped shape his earliest dreams. Through Amelia, he discovered not only his true origins, but also the power of quiet and persistent faith, the kind that follows a child's potential for decades and continents, never doubting that the drawings of basketball hoops would turn into real games. I'm still just building the things I drew in your kitchen all those years ago, Michael said quietly. I know, Amelia smiled. That's why I kept them, to remind you of where it all started. When their children returned to the apartment with flushed faces from playing in the garden, Michael realized the real miracle wasn't what he had done for his former nanny, but what she had done for him all along. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to not miss other inspiring stories that will move you. Until the next story.